when we talk about Bitcoin and Lightning, if we're going to build it the right way, it's got to be non-custodial. Now, minutes before you walked on stage, you announced something pretty big that you guys are going to do at Square. Do you want to talk about your vision for like non-custodial Bitcoin use?
Yeah, I mean, we're considering building a non-custodial hardware wallet, and the thing we want to do is make it completely in the open. So from all of our software to all of our hardware design, will be open source. It'll be on GitHub. We want to build it in collaboration with the community. So we started a thread today just asking some questions about our design principles. We don't want to compete with the hardware wallets out there. We just want to take it to the next level and get to 100 more million people who have non-custodial solutions. And we're likely to do it sometime very soon. But we wanted to make sure that we're thinking about this in the correct way and we're reaching out to the right folks in the community to build it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that non-custodial use of Bitcoin is so important, and Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, knew this. Just a little tidbit for the audience here. Satoshi chose his or her birthday as April 5th, okay? April 5th was the day that the United States government basically, banned private ownership of gold in 1933. So when Satoshi was designing Bitcoin, he or she was thinking about how the US government centralized and confiscated gold away from the people and how they could make a system that could prevent that. They chose the year of their birthday as 1973, which was when gold was made available for the American people again. So I think we need to think about this very carefully. Non-custodial use of Bitcoin is built into Satoshi's vision for the project. So it's really exciting to see Square support this. I think a lot of the custodians in the space won't be very happy, but as you said today in your thread, as inspired by Isaiah, not your keys, not your cheese.
Yep. Yep. No, and as a custodial exchange, we need to push more companies like us to make sure that people have non-custodial solutions, and we're gonna show up.
Earlier, you brought up, this is very important. You brought up a point where y'all are Bitcoin only, right? Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I mean, there's a lot of talk about proof of stake and other coins. Like, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin and its proof of work and full nodes model versus maybe other models?
I mean, again, like the conditions that created Bitcoin, everything that went into it, from the proof of work model to the development model, no single points of failure, everything about it is why we're into it. There's nothing else that compares to it. And we have no interest other than making sure that we are building a native currency for the internet and helping in every way that we can. So all the other current coins, to me, don't factor in at all.
And yeah, I just wanted to underline this for the audience here. Like, Bitcoin is about user control. Like, the users control the monetary policy. Like, you control it, you control it, you control it, I control it. There's not a small group of people controlling the monetary policy. And that's really what we're here for. We're here to create an alternative to this system, the fiat system, where a small group of people can basically determine, what the rules are. I just was in a meeting yesterday with an amazing guy named Fodé Diop from Senegal. He's telling me this story about how in the late 90s, he lives in a country that still uses the CFA. It's a French colonial currency, so the French from Paris control these people and they make decisions on behalf of them. His father had saved up all this money for him to go to college, and the French just decided to devalue the currency overnight, and he could no longer pursue his dreams. That's why when he saw Bitcoin later, he was like so open to it and excited, and he said, this is my ticket out of here, right? So at the end of the day, you have to remember the difference between Bitcoin and all the other coins is that Bitcoin, we control the monetary policy. It's not going to change. And with every single other coin, it's up to some small group of people who are going to, at best, do their best, and then the track record for that globally is
until they don't.
until they don't,
until they get
right?
corrupted in some other way.
Yeah, I mean, there's always this temptation to print more to fix the problems, right? Well, you can't do that with Bitcoin. Now, when we talk about other digital currencies, there is a digital currency phenomenon that I did want to talk to you about, and that's central bank digital currencies. So it appears that around the world, there's this drive to move beyond paper cash and to bring us to a system where citizens actually may have a liability of the central bank in their phone, as opposed to using paper money. And this obviously presents a lot of civil liberties concerns. Even Christine Lagarde has said that the digital euro won't really have full privacy. Obviously, the Chinese government is pursuing an aggressive CBDC. These things are likely to lead to like forced spending, negative interest rates, confiscation, blacklists. So this is all happening. There's like this war on cash. What are your thoughts on this idea of like, financial freedom and privacy in a world that's moving beyond paper money?
I mean, I think all of the things that you mentioned in terms of what central banks are trying to do are just bumps in the road, and they're bullshit. We have a much better alternative in Bitcoin. We have designs for that, that sort of privacy and that freedom within it. And the more we can, especially our governments can realize that and get in the boat sooner, the better off we all are.
A lot of people say, Bitcoin's just for bad people. It's just for bad actors. What's your kind of response to that? Like, it's just for criminals? Like, same sort of stuff that they said in the early 90s about encryption, right? They were like, it's going to be for bad people. We don't want Americans to have privacy. Well, thankfully, the cypherpunks, made it possible for us to have things like Signal. What is your response when you talk to regulators or government officials or people when they say, this is just too risky, it's going to hurt people?
It feels like it's a cover for something else going on. I don't actually hear that a lot from regulators.
Interesting.
Square was one of the first companies that was a public company that talked to the SEC about Bitcoin. That never came up. So it feels like there's probably something a little bit deeper when you're hearing any of these excuses, and it's just trying to understand what that really is. And I think it's really losing power effectively.
One of the interesting things about Bitcoin is the way that the incentives align. So recently there was a little bit of a controversy with some of the companies that are doing Bitcoin mining and a software upgrade that's going to bring new privacy to Bitcoin called Taproot, which is in the process of activating right now, which is very exciting. But one of these companies, they weren't signaling for Taproot, and then there was like this huge community backlash. And the company was actually forced to come out with a video message and say, sorry, we're definitely going to signal, they basically sort of bent the knee to the community. That's a unique phenomenon that awesome. A corporation would be virtue signaling for censorship, resistance, and privacy. What do you see when you look at stuff like that?
It was awesome. The community could change the path and change the mindset. I think that's incredible. And I don't know why it didn't happen sooner, but it's just another lesson for any company trying to get into this space and trying to support Bitcoin.
Well, there's a lot of people who say Wall Street's just going to control Bitcoin. They're just going to make it a tool for themselves. I mean, that's kind of a nice example of how that's probably not the case, right?
It can't, and it never will. It never will. And the more companies, small, big, that demonstrate that and try to offset again their corporateness. By doing things that are more supportive of the community itself, such as creating a Square Crypto-like thing, such as creating a COPA-like thing to give up Bitcoin patents to protect the community. It becomes more and more resilient every single day.
I often think about how the world is so focused on the micro movements of the Bitcoin exchange rate versus the dollar. And meanwhile, this incredible foundational upgrade has just been essentially transformed into reality by the users, and nobody's paying attention to this. It's kind of interesting, right? It's almost like running interference for the real revolution, right?
It's working. It's incredible.
I wanted to hit another topic here. We hear a lot about Bitcoin's energy use, right? And you all at Square just put out a paper with ARK that described how actually, Bitcoin mining might incentivize the adoption of renewable energy. And it may actually basically help unlock renewable energy resources that are stranded or otherwise unused around the world. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you have this belief or philosophy that Bitcoin mining is actually helpful for our species and our planet?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the economics of it, and ultimately miners have to make a profit, and getting cheap renewable energy maximizes their potential for profit. It's really that simple. And I thought I had some agreement with some notable figures out there, and then that seemed to change over a matter of a few weeks, and now it's in a weird kind of place. But I believe fully that Bitcoin over time and today does incentivize more renewable energy. And I think it does incentivize more awareness around how we're getting that power and gives people more freedom to convert unused, wasted power into something that actually creates value for billions of people around the world.
Yeah, just a couple. I mean, I think it's a great message. Just a couple facts I'd throw out to the audience. The U.S. government this year is decommissioning, for political reasons, more nuclear power than is necessary to power essentially the entire Bitcoin network. So, we need to think carefully about energy and waste and the environment, but there's more than meets the eye here, and I would encourage all of you to sort of dig in and learn more about Bitcoin mining. I also wanted to share briefly this example of how it could actually benefit people in emerging markets. So a lot of philanthropists and outside investors have been trying to help Virunga National Park in the DRC, in the Congo. And they've been building some hydro facilities there. They have this mighty river and incredible natural resources. But the problem is that when they build the dam, it takes time to connect the transmission lines to the dam, so the project remains fairly inert for a while, and it's not that exciting of a development project for that reason. But about a year and a half ago, the people who run the park, and this is an incredible park that supports 5 million people, it's the most amazing wildlife in the planet, they decided to start Bitcoin mining, and it gave them a source of revenue that can allow them to bootstrap the rest of their operations. And this is coming online across the country. And that's going to happen in so many countries that can start unlocking solar, wind, renewable, you name it. I mean, they're going to start realizing that this can help bootstrap them into some energy independence. So I think that's important for you all to consider when you're reading these headlines about how Bitcoin is boiling the oceans. You need to think deeper. That's what I think. 100%. I don't know. What do you think,
100%.
Jack?
100%. Well said. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wrap up. I have one more thing to say. Today, 32 years ago today, these incredibly brave students in Tiananmen Square stood up for freedom. Chinese people are still fighting that fight today, especially the Uyghur people, especially the Tibetan people, especially people in Hong Kong. We often hear that Bitcoin is a threat to America and is a threat to our values. But is it really? Isn't Bitcoin's free speech and property rights and sovereignty, don't you think that vibes better with our society than maybe a closed communist police state? Don't you think that we're going to benefit a little more than maybe some other countries? Maybe could you even say Bitcoin is patriotic?
100%. But I think it benefits the entire world. I mean, that's what makes it incredible. Is every single person in the world will benefit and get value from utilizing this. And the more accessible we make it, just that realization that we finally have a currency that can be traded to any single point on the planet is pretty incredible. And what that enables going forward is mind-blowing. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens.
Yeah, I mean, this concept that Bitcoin is for everyone is, I think, what I want you to go home with. Bitcoin is non-discriminatory. It cannot choose who uses it. And none of you can block our access or her access or his access. It is something that's open for all of us, and it's open source. And I, as a human rights activist, am grateful that companies like Square are supporting the open source side of Bitcoin, are supporting non-custodial use, are supporting Lightning. These are things that I don't think may have been possible before Bitcoin's incentive structure. So I really wanted to thank you, Jack, for coming out and sharing your thoughts. It's obviously a tricky political situation out there, but I think we agree that Bitcoin is the way forward here.
100%. It's the only way out.
Well, thank you all so much. I would thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you all.